When I read a book about my parish here in Uppsala, Sweden, my attention was caught by an article about Tadek Rasnikiewicz. He was caught with an illegal newspaper and sent to Auschwitz. There, he lived in the same barack as the Polish priest Maximilian Kolbe. Tadek was with him that special day when Maximilian gave up his life for a fellow prisoner. After speaking with Tadek, I decided I had to make a film about his life before it was too late.
This photo was taken in 1939, a week before the war started. I was 17 years old. My mother said that we had to take a photo as everybody was there. She'd experienced the First World War and understood that another war was approaching. I was arrested in 1940 when they found an underground newspaper on me that I was distributing. This was proof that I belonged to the resistance movement. Also, 2 of the priests teaching in my school died in Dachau, in the concentration camp. Arriving in Auschwitz on January the 6th, 1941, late in the evening, was an awful experience. Screams, dogs, beatings, and a lot more. 4 of us had to carry an old, bearded Jew. He was so beaten that the blood poured. Later I learned that Jews did not live many days. At the camp, the Lagerführer received us saying, as he always did, "There is one way to freedom," while pointing to the cremation chimneys. I had to do many different jobs, shoveling snow, moving bricks and stones. When we carried the bricks, the SS officers hit us, mostly the older prisoners, so that we would work faster. But I was young and could mostly stay out of their way. On Friday, the 1st of August, the same year, I arrived back at my block, number 14A, after having worked with thinning out beats. When you go to Auschwitz nowadays, my block has a new number, number 19, as later they built 8 more blocks on the Appellplatz, the place for roll calls. At our block, the Blockschreiber, who was also a prisoner, counted us to make sure everyone was back. My number was 9160, which meant I was arrested on September 9th, 1940. So I was already an old prisoner. I had a bandage around my right hand after a recent surgery. As I stood there, a man came up to me as he saw that I was young and wounded. He asked, "Why are you here?" I answered, "They arrested me because they found an underground paper on me." "Where do you come from?" he then asked. "Lezhaisk," I answered, and he said, "Mary from Lezhaisk. She will help you survive." gruppen, alltså från annan arbetsplats kom. Then the second group of prisoners arrived back from work. One of them ran up to us. He looked happy and excited. He said, "Pater, I'm glad to see you again." Pater Kolbe showed with his hand that he should be quiet, but the man was very happy and wanted to hug him. Then he turned to me and asked if I knew who was talking to me. I answered no, and then he explained, "It's the prior of Nipokalanov," and he said his name, Pater Kolbe. I was surprised because the pictures I'd seen of Pater Kolbe was of a monk with a beard, not someone shaved like us. In school, I was a member of the Militia of the Immacolata that Kolbe had founded. And I had read in the newspapers about him coming back from Japan, so I knew who he was, but I did not recognize him without his beard. Then there was the pen, that is the roll call. We stood in long rows outside our blocks while the commandant and other officers inspected us. After we had finished the meal, I heard some men talking with Pater Kolbe. They were angry at him for working at a high-risk commando, the worst work in Auschwitz, and they promised to help him to get an easier placement as a capo, that is a prisoner boss. The following Sunday was unusual. The weather was nice, and we worked only a half day. After the meal, an orchestra played at the roll call place. It was a real concert, and there were chairs for some SS officers, while I sat on some bricks in the back. Then I had to go to the bathroom, so I walked back to my block. At the entrance stood a prisoner. He was only 2 numbers higher than me, that is 9162, and had come with the same transport as I did. He looked at me and said that I could go in. But outside our room was also a prisoner who stopped people from entering. I heard someone scream, "The concert is over, now comes the capo." And I heard a loud noise of people shuffling around, and someone said, "Hostia, hidden." Then I understood that they had celebrated a mass inside the block during the concert. The following day, on Monday, the 4th of August, we learned that the prisoner from our block had escaped from Auschwitz. I remember that he also slept in a top bunk. As a punishment, we had to stand in lines the whole night. I remember clearly hearing a cock crow early in the morning before we were allowed to return to our block. On Tuesday, we didn't get any food, but when we were at the block, in the room where we slept and ate, we heard that the Lagerführer and the Reportführer came with the SS men. The Blockführer told us that we had to go out, and we knew what this meant. They would pick people as hostages. It used to be 10 people. The idea was that if the escaped prisoner came back, they released hostage. But it was never like that. Never happened. When we walked out, Pater Kolbe stood at a pillar inside the room where we ate and slept. Those who wanted a blessing passed him by, and he blessed them. I was the last or second last, as I wanted to be near Pater Kolbe. So I was one of the last whom he gave a blessing. We walked side by side, forming rows, and when arriving at the roll call square, I stood just beside Pater Kolbe. But when the next row formed in front of us, he moved. Finally, I ended up in the 4th row and Pater Kolbe in the 5th.
A prisoner has escaped or is hiding. As he hasn't been found, we will pick 10 of you as hostage.
The Lagerführer began walking along the first row, looking everyone in the eyes. And finally, he picked someone. Then he walked along the 2nd row and picked another. Again he said, 2 rows ahead, and I walked forward with the 3rd and 4th row. I was all tense. In my row, he picked someone else, which was a great relief. After our turn, I saw Pater Kolbe. When the Lagerführer approached him, he began to walk slower, but passed by, then stopped and read the number of another man. He said the number out loud and pointed at the prisoner, who was thin and sunburned after working outside. The 2 SS men pulled the chosen man out from the row as he did not move. He almost hanged in their hands. His legs probably just became all soft, knowing he was to die. He said in German, "Why me? I have wife and kids." It was almost like he pleaded with the Lagerführer to change his mind. But the block secretary just noted the number of the prisoner, and they took him to the others in the hostage. He was the 5th. Then came the 6th, the 7th, and so on, one from each of the 10 rows. We stood with our caps down, listening to the summing up of the Reportführer, waiting for the command to put on our caps and leave, when I felt a push on my right side. I became worried when I saw Pater Kolbe pressing through the lines of men.
Was ist los?
Ich möchte an seiner Stelle gehen.
Bist du verrückt?
Ich bin Priester, katholischer Priester, und er hat eine Familie.
Then I saw Pater Kolbe and the thin man shift places, and the guards took away the hostage. They were brought to the punishment block, number 11th, and put into the basement to die.
After Auschwitz, Tadeusz was brought to 2 more concentration camps. The last was a work camp in Neuengamme. At the end of the war, when the Germans tried to wipe out their traces, the prisoners in Neuengamme were forced onto a ship, Cap Arcona, formerly a luxury liner. In the afternoon of May 3, 1945, Cap Arcona was tragically bombed by the British in the Bay of Lübeck. Tadeusz jumped into the sea, and together with another prisoner, he swam to freedom. But several thousand people, mostly prisoners from concentration camps, died when the ship sank. Only 350 survived. The same month, Tadeusz was picked up by one of the famous white buses from Sweden that rescued over 15,000 concentration camp prisoners and brought them to Scandinavia.
You never know what stories people carry in their heart. On the surface, just another old man who doesn't even speak the language very well. You must try to see beneath the surface and listen carefully. Otherwise, the stories really worth telling are lost.